We were ready to leave, and the young man came up to my dad to thank him, and my dad said, "Son, I think we should raise money and buy you a new tent." He said, "Nope, last tent I'll need. I want to use it for 2 weeks." He said, "I'm going to found a church here." He said, "This tent is done." He said, "But there is something you can pray for, Mr. Gibbs." And my dad said, "What's that?" He said, "I'm going to found a new church," and he did. He said, "I want to put the gospel on television. I have no money," but he said, "I'm asking television to give me 10 minutes to give the Romans Road." Now, this is in the early 50s. There was no religious broadcasting, zero. If you were in a big town, you had 2 or 3 stations. Most towns had 1 station. And how many of you remember the TVs with all the white snow on them? You remember all of that? And how many of you remember that we'd ask the kids to hold the rabbit ears? Okay. Well, my dad said, "You want to put the gospel on television?" He said, "Yeah." My dad said, "Well, can I ask you a question?" He said, "You have experience at that?" He said, "No, I have no experience." He said, "You have educational credentials? Some degrees or training?" He said, "No, I never graduated from high school." He said, "I had to quit high school. My dad died, and I had to go to work to support my mom, my 2 brothers, and my 2 sisters." My dad said, "You have any money?" He said, "Mr. Gibbs, if I had money, I'd own a new tent." He said, "No, I don't have any money." So my dad said, "Let me get this right. You have no money, no experience, and no credentials. What makes you think you're going to put the gospel on television?" And he looked at my dad and he said, "Because I asked." Do you have any idea how powerful an ask is with God? Do you have any idea what God says when you ask? Ask in faith believing, and ye shall receive. Whoa. On the way home in the truck, I told my dad, I said, "Do you think he's going to get the gospel on television? I'd like to see that." My dad said, "I don't know, but I'll tell you what, he asked and got that tent up." And he said, "Son, God does do the impossible." And I said, "What's this thing about moving mountains?" My dad says, "That's the term for doing the impossible." What's on your impossible list? Well, he founded his new little church. We went to it once. Little tiny building, rat infested. Had 60 seats in it. They had signs out front that said, "We're trying to get rid of the rats, but we apologize. Please keep your feet up on the seat in front of you." That is what the sign said, so that if something furry runs by, you don't jump and make a noise. Next week, he went up to the local TV station, got the manager and said, "I want you to put me on for free. I have no money. I want to give the gospel." The manager said, "Are you out of your mind? Number one, I don't want religion on my TV station." He said, "Number two, why would I put you on for free when I have people standing in line with money begging me for time? Why would I ever put you on for free?" He said, "Because I asked." That manager said, "You asked who?" He said, "I asked God." Would you have the nerve to say that? He said, "Get out of here. That's nonsense. Get out of here." And threw him off the property. Next week he went back. He asked again. Now the manager got abusive, swore at him, said, "Son, you're a slow learner. You're never getting on this station. Now get out of here." And threw him off. Came back the third week. Now he threatened him. He said, "You come back again, I'll have you arrested. Stay off our property." He's walking out the door, and a lady sitting at a desk there, one of the secretaries, said, "Can I talk to you?" He said, "Sure." She said, "This Romans Road you keep talking about, 10 minutes, and somebody can know whether they're going to heaven or not when they die. Is that real?" He said, "Absolutely real." She said, "Well, my sister's dying. Could you come give it to my sister? She's only got a few days to live." He said, "I'd be honored to." She said, "Well, get in your car and follow me." He started following the lady, and what he didn't realize, he thought the lady lived in the area. The lady lived 300 miles away. 300 miles. Now he's flashing his lights. He's out of fuel. He said, I'm so sorry. He said, I don't have money for gas. She said, that's all right. I got to get you to my sister. Good thing they did. When they got there, he led that sister to the Lord. Half an hour after he was there, she prayed the sinner's prayer. When they walked out the door, that secretary turned to him and said, is what you did with my sister what you wanted to put on TV? He said, that's exactly what I want. She said, well, come next Saturday, you'll be on television. He said, that's a very sweet thought, but that manager hates me. He's threatened to have me arrested if I show up again. He really dislikes me. The secretary said, I know he dislikes you. That's my husband. But here's what you don't know. He doesn't own the station. I do. He doesn't run it. I do. And I've been watching for 3 weeks. Your God heard your prayer. I'll be there next Saturday. He gave the Romans road the next Saturday for 10 minutes. Then he said, if you prayed that sinner's prayer with me, I want you to write or call. Over 400 people responded. 10 minutes. The next week was over 1,000. She came to him and she said, I own 2 other stations. Now you're on 3. And she said, I know everybody that has stations. And she said, I'm calling all my friends. Within 4 years' time, she had them on 2,600 stations nationwide. One man said, I'm going to ask. I'm going to ask. People would come up to him and say, how did you do this? And he'd say, you don't get it. I don't do it. He said, God could get so much better than me, but I asked. God could get better than any of us. But what holds it back is our asking. Finally, 5 years later, 26,000 to 30,000 people are writing every week saying, I prayed that sinner's prayer. What would it take for us to ask? It will change everything. When my dad had his 80th birthday, I said, Dad, what do you want for your birthday? He said, you remember that evangelist that we helped pull his tent up and he put the gospel on television? I said, yeah. He said, could you track him down and see if he'd come for my birthday? I said, let me try. And I found him. Now, we were in Florida. He's in California. I said, long way, but would you come for my dad's birthday? I said, I don't know if you remember me. He said, yeah, you were the kid in the truck. He said, everybody called you Little Gibbs. I said, well, I'm not Little Gibbs no more, okay? Little Gibbs grew up and out. He said, I'll be there. And he showed up for my dad's birthday. Boy, they sang hymns together, told stories of people who got saved. Finally, it was time to take him back to his hotel to leave the next morning. And I said, now in the morning, I'll be there sharp 7:30. Don't be late. Those morning flights are on time. I showed back at his motel plenty early. I couldn't find him anywhere. Went to both coffee shops, the restaurant, went up to his room twice. I'm walking around. Have you seen anybody walking around here with a Bible under their arm? Can't find him anywhere. Finally, out front, a bellhop comes up to me and says, you looking for that guy with the Bible under his arm? I said, yeah. He said, well, 2 buses pulled up, full of executives for a Fortune 100 company. They're here for a big meeting. And they got out, and he walked up to them and said, are you guys here for the meeting? And they said, yeah. And he said, follow me. He said, what? He said, follow me. And he walked him down a hall over there, and there's a big meeting. He's got him down in a room over there. I walked down and went around the corner, and here he's got these executives on their knees praying. And several of them are sobbing uncontrollably and hugging his neck. And I said, what's going on here, preacher? He said, I asked God for the impossible. I told God I don't want to leave here without winning somebody to Christ this morning. And I asked. And I said, please deliver them to me. And he said, when those buses pulled up, They said they're here for the meeting, and I said, you're the one that needs to be at my meeting. Come on. People were coming up to him saying, How did you know my life was a wreck? How? He said, I didn't, but the God I served did. I'll never forget, he turned to me and he said, you know why you didn't lead anybody to Christ this morning, David? He said, you never asked. You have not because you ask not. You're just comfortable thinking all your needs are met. Listen, it is time for God's people to absolutely ask for the impossible.